CarPlay, Apple Device Harmony, random chat app removal, and a scam ad bill. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by Squarespace. Get online, build your site, promote your brand, and get paid all in one place at squarespace.com/MacVoices. Use the offer code MacVoices for 10% off your first website or domain purchase. Today's MacVoices is supported by HelloFresh. Visit hellofresh.com/MacVoices10FM and get 10 free meals. We'll move away from sports and move into some Apple stuff. I don't know what to make of this one, but apparently Sea-Doo wants to have CarPlay in their water vehicles.
What could possibly
Marty, I think
wrong?
you need to take a drink, right?
I don't know what to make of this other than just the idea that it could connect my music, but I don't think I want to be taking phone calls on my Sea-Doo.
Probably
Marty,
some people do.
Yeah, Marty, you have to have something to say about this. There's just no way.
Boy, this is for drunk Sea-Doo drivers to enjoy. I mean, it just adds to the party aspect of being on a Sea-Doo.
I guess.
So,
crazy.
Would it be useful for navigation? And I'm asking because I've actually never even ridden one of these things.
Yeah, me either.
So I don't know.
I mean, imagine it could be.
Yeah.
Why not?
It could be. But I'd be nervous even having my iPhone on with me unless I had a sealed box with it and it floats.
But with this, you could do that.
Yeah.
You could keep the iPhone in a sealed box and still use it. And also, actually, you can get really good, and they only cost like $12 cases for iPhones now that are completely waterproof. So I'm sure most people, I'm sure a lot of people are taking their phones with them on their Sea-Doos. And how about for an emergency? You might want to contact the Coast Guard or something.
I don't want the case to float. That's one thing.
They do.
Okay.
I got a case like that for when I went to Niagara Falls.
Jeff, I have no idea what we're being serious about this now. I have no idea what the range of a Sea-Doo is, but the idea of navigation is interesting. If you were going from through a body of water from one piece of land to another or along a coast, I guess it could be useful. So,
yeah, as long as there's cell service.
Yeah,
this sounds like a brotastic idea. Sounds like a brotastic idea.
Well, the thing is, it's probably not really very. Probably didn't take them much resources to do this. I think in 2026, it's not super rocket science to add CarPlay to a vehicle. So why not?
Yeah. So, Brian?
Oh, I was just looking at the image in the article. To me, it looks like it might be a better candidate for the CarPlay Ultra with the the speedometer and the directional compass, and the looks like the amount of gas left in the tank. It looks like it could benefit from some of those aspects. Rather than just your traditional CarPlay.
They may be doing that anyway.
Yeah.
With their own UI. I mean, like in my car, the screen where CarPlay appears, there's a bunch of interfaces for the vehicle itself that do vehicle things. So they probably, that may be what they were thinking. Like, hey, we're going to put this screen in here. Why don't we add CarPlay?
If you're a Sea-Doo owner, let us know how you feel about this.
Yeah.
And if we missed anything, because it is interesting. The next one, I will confess to you, I was not certain whether we should put this in or not, but I felt like we kind of needed to. And it had to do with the abduction of Savannah Guthrie's mother. That at least earlier in the week, we were told that her Apple Watch being disconnected from, I believe it was her pacemaker, or being disconnected, in other words, moved too far away, was assisting them in identifying the time of her abduction. Just before this, on my way home from dinner, or at dinner, I should say, I saw that now there's video from a video doorbell of a potential assailant. And so, I guess there's an Apple Watch story here of some kind. There's definitely a video doorbell story here. So, just be aware. Be aware. But, this is just, any abduction is horrible. And this one has really brought the attention to just how horrible it can be because of the amount of attention it's getting. So, anybody have anything to add to that? Because I don't know. I don't even know how to wrap up that or make any comments about it.
Sure. So when I saw this news, it played into thoughts that I've had about doing investigations, forensic analysis in ways that that are helpful in situations like this. Because yes, I think about things like that, and the idea that they're able to use a disconnect of communication from, in this case, a pacemaker, to help narrow down abduction time. That's actually really cool. And to me, this says there's a very valuable use case for investigators that are trained on how to use technologies like this in a responsible way to help locate missing, hurt, injured people.
Jeff, you were much more eloquent than I was, but yeah, I'm right there with you. It just goes to show you that there are secondary uses for these things, that when tragedies strike of one kind or another, that they may help in a way that was totally unanticipated, even if not tracking, at least give you some idea of when things happen. So I don't know. I think we all just send our best out to Savannah and her family and her mother and hope that this story has a good ending. Mark Fuccio, I know you got to cut and run, so thank you for being here. Where can folks find you?
Usual places, X or LinkedIn, MarkFuccio.
Great. Thanks so much for being here. Have a good evening.
Enjoyed it so far. Enjoy the rest of the discussion, you guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
This is an article I just wanted to highlight because I think it talks about things that we kind of, I'm afraid, take for granted. But it's on Macworld. It's 15 features to make your Apple devices work in perfect harmony. And pardon me. And it just, if go through this, and if you haven't seen this, sorry, I'm having a little problem with the chat room. If you haven't seen this, or aren't using some of these features, take a look at them. They may not all apply to you, but things like unlocking your devices with your Apple Watch, something really simple like that. Syncing your data across between devices. Again, there's stuff that we probably all know, and sometimes you just miss it. So take a good look at it. Brian, I love that point. Please make it.
Yeah, definitely. Just when I was going through that article, I kept thinking, what a great article to share with people who, by their choice, might be on other platforms, and just what they might be missing out on and not familiar with. And then I also think about for those, every year Apple on stage will demonstrate the new features of the latest year, and sometimes there's a lot of great features that don't get re-announced because it was announced last year or the year before, and sometimes it's good just to go back and say, oh yeah, that's another feature I'm not using that I could be.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was just an interesting little take that really did so well. MacVoices is supported by HelloFresh. Nothing hits home like home cooking, and HelloFresh makes it easy to do more of it this year with recipes that feel good and taste delicious night after night. With the crazy schedules most of us keep, I love that HelloFresh brings everything right to the door. Pre-proportioned ingredients and step-by-step recipes that let me actually enjoy cooking instead of scrambling to plan meals. It's a great way to have a simple but really satisfying weeknight dinner. And with more than 100 recipes every week, there's always something new, whether I'm in the mood for comfort food or something a little more adventurous to beat the winter blues. What I really appreciate is the variety and flexibility. You can choose from more than 35 high-protein recipes each week, including Mediterranean and GLP-1 friendly options, so it's easy to pick meals that fit how you want to eat. The ingredients feel great too. Things like sustainably sourced seafood and 100% antibiotic and hormone-free chicken, plus seasonal produce that actually tastes fresh. And now there are even 3 times the seafood available with no upcharge, along with premium options like grass-fed steak ribeyes if you want to impress guests or just treat yourself. Because when dinner tastes this good, nothing hits home like home cooking. I use HelloFresh, and you should too. Go to HelloFresh.com/MacVoices10FM to get 10 free meals, plus a freeze willing knife, a $145 value on your third box. Offer valid while supplies last. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. Thanks to HelloFresh for supporting MacVoices. Today's MacVoices is supported by Squarespace. If you run a business, your website isn't just a brochure. It's your storefront, your marketing hub, and often your first impression. That's why I recommend Squarespace. It gives you a professional online presence without needing a team of developers or a pile of separate services to manage. With Squarespace, you can build a polished site using expertly designed templates and customize everything to match your brand. Update products, publish new content, or adjust your messaging in minutes with simple visual tools. No coding required. That means you can react quickly to market changes, launch new offerings faster, and keep your site aligned with your current business goals. Squarespace also brings the business essentials together in one place. Built-in e-commerce, secure payments, analytics, SEO tools, and domain management. Instead of stitching together multiple platforms, you get a unified system that helps you understand your audience, promote your services, and actually convert visitors into customers. And with Squarespace Blueprint AI, you can generate a tailored site structure based on your business needs, then refine it as your company grows. If your website should work as hard as you do, Squarespace is the platform to build on. Go to squarespace.com/MacVoices for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use offer code MacVoices to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Squarespace.com/MacVoices and the code MacVoices to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks to Squarespace for supporting MacVoices. Apple has extended its option to remove random or anonymous chat apps in the App Store. And I've read a number of pieces on this as to, is this good? Is this not good? Is it giving Apple too much veto power? Does it give them wiggle room? I want to hear from this crew, what your thoughts are. Because I know I have my thoughts, but Eric, you're kind of quiet. Let's hear from you.
Sure, you picked that one. So I'm kind of mixed, because there are a lot of apps that are whipped together and put out, and people buy them and start communicating, and there really is not a good guarantee that the communications are secure, that nobody else is monitoring it, that any of the assumptions you're making about whoever built the app actually match with anything, and it's not some other government that created the app just to add extra monitoring. So there's just a lot of potential for future lawsuits and danger to people using the apps. On the other hand, things like Ice Block, I think it was a little bit more unclear about what it is they were trying to save you from. I'll leave that one alone. The technology was interesting. It was interesting to read about it. So, yeah, maybe. I think it can certainly be taken too far, and I don't know how you tell if it was taken too far, and I don't know how you would appeal it if you think that something was removed from the store incorrectly.
Oh, okay. Jeff.
Okay, first, we have to remember that the App Store belongs to Apple, and they can do as they please with the types of apps they allow or don't. Apple could, if they so choose, say, you know what, we don't allow chat apps of any kind, or we don't allow video games of any kind, or whatever. They can make that decision, and that's a business choice. And it may or may not be a smart one, but they can make that choice. I appreciate what they're going for here. And I haven't read up enough on exactly what Apple is doing in this case to pass judgment on whether or not they're going about it in the right way. But I do appreciate that they're looking at apps that have a potential higher likelihood of being used in inappropriate ways, and then trying to decide what to do with those. So my guess is that this will be an evolving policy, and yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Okay. Marty?
You know, I have mixed feelings about this because there are some things that I don't think having access to is necessarily a good idea, but that's my opinion. The reality is, for any of these apps, I sign up for them. And so at that point, I kind of have to take personal responsibility for those choices. Now, anonymity can be important in some cases. I mean, they have the thing in here in terms of protesters in Nepal. They want that anonymity so they can communicate amongst each other and not be at risk of being persecuted by their government. At the same time, anonymity means apps might have the availability to create deep fakes of nudity or pornography or child pornography, and that allows that behavior to go untethered. So it's really a tough call. I've been in situations where I've been gathering news information and sending it to friends on other parts of the world because there's been a blackout in their country and they don't know what's going on from a news standpoint. And so anonymous apps would maybe give more availability for that kind of stuff. But ultimately, I'm the one that purchases the app or uses the app, and that responsibility sits in my hand.
I love all the comments because you make me think. Oh, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, I remember when Chat Roulette first came out, and it was interesting and it was fun, and it sort of reminded me of some of the things that Eric and Marty and Dave have talked about with Vision Pro, where people pop in, to a virtual room and from all over the country, and chat, and that's the upside to it. And then my personal experience was Chat Roulette, where it was interesting for a while, and then it kind of went downhill. And it became, let's just say, not necessarily pleasant. It was not populated by, at least not in my experience, by people that were interested in talking, shall we say. And so I looked at this and thought, maybe, okay. I don't know. I don't know. Jeff, pardon me, you say Chat Roulette is still there?
It is. I thought it had fizzled out years ago, but apparently it is still active. And well, I haven't loaded up the page right now because for all the reasons you just said, I'm even finding articles from like last summer, where where they're talking about even better options than chat roulette for that type of thing. And yeah, look at this chat roulette review 2026. Is it still worth using? Yeah, it's still a thing. So yeah, Marty, I'll be watching for you on it later.
Okay.
The anonymity part is one that I can't argue either direction, because I think it cuts both ways. It does feel like that there was a time that you could sign up on the social medias and have a halfway decent chance of at least some anonymity. And now, you have to give. They want you to give, and in some cases they force you to give phone numbers and email addresses, and you could maybe get a Yahoo address or a Gmail address or a Hotmail address in the old days. But even then, they were kind of trying to figure out who you were. So there is no anonymity on the major sites. So is this what it turns into, that there has to be anonymity in these private apps? And what about our discussion just last week, as I recall, about WhatsApp? Is that more of a mainstream kind of thing? You still have to identify yourself, but do you trust that to protect your anonymity?
No.
So what do you trust, Jeff? Do you even trust these apps?
No. The closest I come to trusting that I'm anonymous in a general sense with a social app of any kind is Apple's Messages app. And I'm not anonymous in there, but to the general world I am, because no one, excuse me, knows what's in the conversations that I'm having. But once it goes to an outside thing where other people can be involved in the chats, and it's relying on someone else's servers, then my trust of true anonymity, it really tanks.
If you have thoughts, folks, let us know. I'd love to hear from you, because it's an increasingly complex world, and some of these questions, I'm not sure any of them necessarily have good answers. So you sort of have to decide for yourself, I guess. Like Jeff, like you said. Some U.S. senators have unveiled a bill to prevent scam ads on social media platforms. Yippee. Wow. Great roaring silence here.
One of them is co-sponsored by a senator in Ohio that not excited about.
This is interesting, Marty, is not excited because you don't, and you don't need to name many names if you don't wish. Is it because about your feelings about that senator, or is it your feelings about the bill and how effective it could or could not be?
The only thing that I can see about this is the reason this is signed on is, and this is my political paranoia, is there's got to be a backdoor, there's got to be a grift in here somewhere. So yeah.
From the standpoint of what the app is doing, is that what or
from the standpoint of when you're getting endorsement from this guy, you better keep both hands in your pocket.
Got it. Okay. Understood. Eric.
I guess the question is, what is a fraudulent or ad, or what is what is fraudulent? What is a problem? It's defined by somebody one day, and then 6 months later it's defined differently by somebody else. So it's an interesting concept to say, oh, you can't put fraudulent ads out there, but it's really hard to define what that actually means in a useful way. You'll just get an ad that skirts the edge of that, and it's still just as bad. So, is this really good? It's hard to keep up with technology. Laws don't do a very good job of that.
Okay, Jeff.
All right, I'm fully willing to accept that I might be horribly ignorant right now, but I'm always willing to learn. Don't we already have laws and regulations prohibiting scam and fraudulent and false advertising? And the FTC has the authority to enforce those on some level. So, wouldn't these ads fall under that same jurisdiction, at least in the United States?
You would think so.
So with that said, okay, we have in this case, it's service providers like we'll use social network like Facebook. They're the service provider. Wouldn't they end up falling under the same requirements as your local NBC affiliate for not airing fraudulent ads or scam ads?
I guess it would have to, we would all have to go back and see exactly how those laws are written as to whether they can apply to a social media ad. I would think so. Your common sense would say yes, but you know how that is.
I know how that is, but Eric's right. Everything moves much faster than the law. So it may be that the current laws don't actually apply in this case, or aren't properly whatever.
Yeah. Well, if they were properly enforced from Meta's own admissions, they would, they could have been prosecuted thousands of times over, but they haven't been. So, Brian?
Yeah, just I too am not extremely familiar with the specific language in this bill, but in thinking about some of the challenges that I could see, one could be the definition of a scam versus a ripoff, and it makes me it's a line that obviously one is illegal and one is a ripoff. You shouldn't, it would be wise not to buy that item, subscribe to that service or something of nature. But when Jeff had pointed out, are there already tools in place? There are a couple places, both the FTC as well as the Better Business Bureau, that do allow for appropriate submissions to see if something is a scam or to report something that may be fraudulent. So, I too, I don't know if this is actually doing anything more than what laws already exist in the books, but yeah.
Or is it just the difficulty of enforcement of this kind of thing? Because I had an experience, and I think I talked about it on the show, where I went to buy something through a Facebook marketplace, and it was one of those where they just strung you along, and there was this, there was that, and you finally got down to, well, we're going to send the delivery people over, and you pay them with gift cards.
Yeah.
And so, fine. I took it to the local police department, and they looked at it and said, yeah. And I said, well, this was on a local one of the forums, or I forget what they're called on Facebook, but that was local to my specific area. I mean, like township. And they said, yeah, what do you want us to do about it? They said, you're one of the smart ones that you didn't get caught. And it's like, okay, that's not exactly what I thought I would hear from you. I mean, they barely wrote up a report. And so, I look at it and think, well, okay, if the laws are in place and this is law enforcement's attitude, then kind of what's the point?
That's a fair question.
Yeah. And Jeff, now I'll take the other side. I recognize that the scam could have been coming from Kathmandu, so I can't fault them for their inability to maybe achieve a prosecution. But, just to say, they're sure happy to tag me when I'm going 5 miles over the speed limit. But, so. I want to come back to Eric with your question, Eric, because I think that's another legitimate one.
Where was I going with this? It makes a lot of sense if you've got a company that's making all of their money from ad revenue, they're willing to allow scam ads to keep going because they're still making money and there's no incentive for them to shut it down. That's kind of the idea behind this, which sounds good. But you could redefine what you consider to be a scam ad to just shut down a media company that you're unhappy with, saying, oh yeah, you had ads on that page that don't do what they're advertising, we will either fine you enough to put you out of business or, make you spend all your time in court defending yourself. It certainly could be abused as well. So, there's always the two sides to the laws. At one point there was a really high quality government group that spent all their time looking at large computing groups that were trying to go after, attack infrastructure, attack companies in the U.S. And a lot of that got dismantled, partly because at one point they said something that was disagreed with. So, even if you do a law, then at some point you have to create a group to kind of respond to the results of that law. And then there's always a risk that goes after companies that didn't do anything wrong, or that the enforcement teams get eliminated when you're unhappy with who they're enforcing against.
Marty.
Yeah, going off what Jeff kind of said, that these things, and the discussion has said, these things are covered by federal consumer law and state consumer law in a lot of cases. So if it's already covered that way, I think this action allows two things to happen. It allows Meta to stand up and say, and they cite Meta in here, so I'm not picking on Meta, but it allows Meta to stand up and say, hey, listen, we are working to fight scams, and then continue with their same business practices. And it allows politicians to stand up and say, hey, look we put this bill out to fight scam ads on social media and scam when it's already being done. So it's a paper tiger. And unfortunately, most of the voting public won't connect the dots and say, oh, this is great. They put something out that has already been established by law.
Barry in the chat room said, and I hope I'm going to get this right, Barry, from Gen Digital and Info Security Magazine, recent research indicates that nearly 1 in 3 ads on Meta platforms, including Facebook, are linked to scams, phishing, or malware. I think this is data from the EU and UK, since the social media platforms are required to provide data to researchers. No such regs in the US.
Wow.
So if that's even 50% true, it's disturbing. So, and Marty, your analysis is deeply cynical, and I agree with it completely. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.